Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, as you heard, my name is José Eliel Camargo. I go by Eliel Camargo, it's shorter. Works better in Sweden. And I am a co-founder of Art and Science Initiative, but sometimes I do research in particle physics in Lund University. So that's a bit of my background. And what I'm going to talk about today, you get it right there, is what's the role of fundamental science in innovation and in social innovation. So, first of all, let's see what's innovation, right? Here everyone works with that, but I think it's still useful to try to get the same picture, that we're all on the same page. So when you grab somebody in the street and you ask them what's innovation, what do they think? Well, the first thing is idea, a new idea. No, that's okay, innovation is a new idea. But also solution. So typically, innovation comes to solve a problem. Sometimes a problem that was there, sometimes a problem that wasn't there, but it tries to solve a problem. And it leads to products, services, things that you can sell, you can make money out of that. That's innovation. But today, we're going to talk about social innovation, which is a type of innovation. And again, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with what social innovation is. But just to be on the same page, is the type of solution to a social problem. It's more effective, sustainable, efficient, and the most important part is that its value is for society rather than for private individuals. So it's society working to solve these problems. A bit of a disclaimer before I continue. Because of my background, this talk is going to be focused on social innovation that is directly fueled by technology, as a science. So I'm going to go through those examples, and I'm going to take that as the starting point because it's what I know best. However, the process I'm going to describe here translates nicely to other types of social innovation. And I'm really eager to hear from all of you how all the ways technology empowers and helps social innovation. Because, as we're going to see, it's getting harder and harder to separate society from technology. But before we move on, and because I wanted to make this a little bit more interactive, let's going to do a thinking experiment. So I want to ask you all to take out your phones. I hope you have internet connection. We're going to do an online, real-time experiment. Right? So, for the rest of the talk, you're going to be the head of the foundation that gives money to research that may lead to social innovation. You're in the director's board, and you're deciding what research gets money, what gets funded. And you're going to make a good decision. So, how many of you are familiar with QR codes? Those that are, you can just take a scanner, scan that code, and get a link. Those who don't, I think this has a laser on it. Great. Go to this link. It's as short as I could make it. Just go to your browser and put the address there or scan your QR code. All right. So what you're going to find there is 3 questions. Who gets funding is what you have to answer. We're going to go to 3 years, 1904, 1940, and 1980. And we're going to get 3 choices, which are real research projects from the time. It's real research that you might have gotten in your desk if you would be in the foundation. There's no rush. We will see the results in a while. We're going to talk a little bit and see what we answered in the light of what I'm talking about. You can vote now. It would be great if you can vote as we go on. But we will also go through the questions a little bit, and we'll have a little bit of extra time if you haven't finished. There's no right answer. Okay? This is not a game that you have to choose one of the 3 is the final answer. The questions are made so that it makes us discuss a little bit why it is so difficult to predict where innovation is going to happen. Right? So, no pressure. Just what you would do. Choose fast. Okay, so now let's go a little bit to one of my favorite things, definitions. I think they're important because it allows us to talk about the same thing and be sure that we're all talking about the same thing and not just about names of things that we all think differently about. And the definitions that I think that are most important right now for this talk is what's the difference between basic or fundamental research and applied research. Because it's something that people talk a lot about, but even within research, within science, it's not really clear what the difference is, and it's a huge difference. So fundamental research, if you read from the dictionary, is scientific research aimed to improve scientific theories for improved understanding or prediction of natural or phenomena. It's a bit hard to process, but I think a good example is, imagine the object that you're studying is a game of chess, and you are playing that game without having no clue what the rules are. You have to figure it out. You have to try to move a piece, maybe no, that's forbidden. You have to understand what the goal of the game is. You have no idea, and you're just seeing how all the pieces move. That's fundamental research. I'm not trying to solve any problem, I'm just trying to understand what is going on. But applied research is scientific research that applies that knowledge that you got through fundamental research to develop more practical applications. Technology, inventions, that kind of stuff. It applies science to the real world practice. So once we understood how the chess game works, applied research will be, for example, how to come up with a 3-people chess game, which actually exists. I mean, it's a bit complicated. But once you understand those rules of how nature works, in this case with natural science, you can use that knowledge to come up with new things that didn't even exist before. But you need to understand the rules. You cannot jump directly to try to, okay, let's do a 3-people chess game without knowing how the pieces happen. And just from Wikipedia taken, just from the article about fundamental research, it says, I like that sentence, that often driven by curiosity, fundamental research fuels applied sciences innovations. But we're here to talk about social innovation. And the whole question is, how does people talk about how research affects innovation, and now how fundamental research affects applied research, and how applied research affects social innovation. So how do they work together? It's definitely not a linear thing like this. It's much more complicated, and it's very special and unique for every case. So I cannot give you a model of how this happens. What I can give you, though, is 3 examples, and that's what I'm going to do. 3 examples. One that has completely changed our society already, one that is changing our society as we speak, and one that still hasn't changed society, but it has all the signs of being able to revolutionize what our society is today. The first example, which is one that has already changed our society, starts with quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the theory of things that are very, very small. When you go to very, very small scales, the concepts of where something is or how fast it's going breaks down. Everything is probabilities. You're probably familiar with things like the Schrödinger cat and those kind of examples they try to talk about quantum mechanics. It's just very weird, okay? And they understand this, just understand how the universe works at those scales. They figure out the rules of the game, it works out, and then comes the next step. They start thinking, wait, if these are the rules of quantum mechanics, we could actually take a material and give some energy to it, and it would produce some light, and it would create some kind of feedback mechanism, and we can do this crazy light that is very, very powerful in one precise energy, and we can focus it and do a lot of crazy stuff with it. Actually, that's lasers. And lasers came up with an idea from all people that said, oh, well, we could actually do this. But it wasn't until the 60s, much later, that it was actually built. And lasers, I guess you can agree with me, led to a lot of applied research. Not only that, not only made us able to have CDs, but it also created new fields of fundamental research. Because with laser, we were able to look at other stuff and create new tools that allowed us to look at other stuff. So it actually fed both ways. And a lot of businesses made a lot of money with that. But that's not what we're going to talk today. What we're going to talk is how does that lead to social innovation. So lasers changed our society, changed the market, technology, but also changed a lot about how society works and created a lot of social innovations. But I'm going to pick an example which is my favorite, rather recent one, which is what people call the makers movement, or what people call the third industrial revolution. People are being able to build, prototype, take their ideas from idea to a product they can grab in their house, in their desk, in their neighborhood. You see that with maker spaces, hacker spaces, workshops that are tools for everyone. And one of the big promoters of that is, of course, 3D printing, which you probably heard about. But before 3D printing, it was laser cutting, laser etching, these type of machines that you could have in your desk that would cut a piece of wood or a piece of plastic very precisely with lasers. And that was the first step. Well, we can actually buy a very cheap laser and build this in our desk. A second example, which is something that is changing our society as we speak, starts again with a little blackboard, but with a different theory there, which is probability theory. Or in other words, how do we understand what randomness is? How do we tame randomness? This has a lot to do with statistics, and to understand in a very theoretical way what probability is and try to do something with information that we get from experiments. A lot of time, that theoretical basis is what allowed us to do things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Without understanding randomness, without understanding probabilities, without understanding all of the stuff, it would have been impossible to come up with this idea. And what artificial intelligence and machine learning is, or what I can tell you very shortly, is basically a way we found of having computers doing stuff, but we don't tell them exactly what to do, but they actually learn how to do it themselves. And this means that the computers can tackle super complex problems and give us a solution that works. It's not an exact solution, but they learn it by themselves, and sometimes we don't even know how they came up with the solution. We just have a black box of a computer that is learning. And you might say, okay, but how is that changing our society today? Well, everything that has to do with understanding your social network, understanding what people around you like and how you relate to them, how Netflix recommends you what series you want to watch, but also how Facebook shows you what advertisement. Or if you have an event, you have a little organization and you create an event and you promote it through Facebook, the way that Facebook knows who to show it to, who's going to be interested, is through machine learning and neural networks. But not only that, robots that help people. Imagine we have all people, we want to have robots that help them. How do they teach those robots to do that task? Well, you can go and try to do a program, or you can just bring the robot there and show it. This is how you do it. And that's where we're going. We're teaching robots how to do stuff. And cars, as we speak, are learning how to drive themselves. And that is around the corner. And that's going to completely change what we can do, how we can move ourselves and the possibilities of transportation and information sharing. And now the third example I want to talk about is something that is potentially going to change how everything looks. And it all starts Watson and Crick trying to think how DNA works. So they were not so interested in, we're going to figure out how DNA works so that we can find a cure to cancer. They just wanted to know how life works, how cells work, how that information gets transmitted, and how DNA is. That was their motivation. And that led to a lot of applied science, all this new genetic era, genetic engineering, all the stuff. But a very good example I want to talk about today is called CRISPR. And CRISPR is something that is rather new, but extremely promising. And it's a way we found to take a mechanism that bacteria use to protect themselves against viruses, to, in practice, go to a DNA of a living organism, pick up a very precise part of that DNA, chop it up, and replace it with something else. And it's much more precise than any human or any machine could ever be. And it can be used to, for example, take a little fetus, inject a little Cas9 protein that goes there, looks for a DNA strand, very small, cuts it very precisely, replaces it with something else. Okay, but what does that mean? Well, it can eradicate completely genetic sicknesses, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis. All of that can just be, you take an injection, goes, changes your DNA, potentially even in a grown-up human being, but of course it's always easier with fetuses because they have much less cells. Or we could start having designer babies. So it can go both ways, no? It kind of has a lot of ethical problems, like what we heard before. Sometimes technology is good, but also we have to think about what are the things we have to think about and control so that it doesn't get out of hand. So we could have a society where people are choosing how their babies look like. First, the people with the money are going to choose how their babies look like. And that's one of the problems. Okay, so you see, it's powerful, but it's hard to know what's going to happen. Watson and Crick had no idea about CRISPR. It couldn't know. Another question is, where are we in terms of funding, in terms of, are we really doing what's necessary? What's the support? And I want to show you a little bit of data, which was very hard to find. So, typically when you hear people from the government, policymakers trying to talk about money that goes into research, they always talk the money that goes into research and development together as a whole bunch of stuff. And it's a lot of money. And it grows, definitely grows a lot. And it sounds very promising. But then when you go try to find the data that actually separates fundamental research from applied research, it's very hard. The only data that I could find, if you know some of the sources, I would be very glad to hear, but the only data that I could find was from the OECD. And already there's a lot of extrapolation going on here because a lot of countries don't keep track of that difference at all. So some countries have some track it around here, some other around here, and then do some fancy stuff to create a continuous set of data. And then you see the green line is fundamental research, the blue is applied research, and the white is experimental development, which is systematic work that draws on existing knowledge that you already have, and practical experience that you already have, and it's directed to produce new materials that are already, we want a material that does this, for example, or we have a product or a service that we want to improve, we want to install a new process, we want to improve what we already have. And that gets a bulk of the money. Also, applied research gets a bulk of the money. And you see, wow, this is great, fundamental research, look how much it's growing. And then this is the point where you have to sit down and try to really understand the plot, which I think is one of the most important things. What you have here is some sort of normalized growth, but in practice I'm going to tell you what is it that is shown here. They go to 1984, they take whatever amount of money each sector was getting, whether it was 1 kroner or 1,000,000 kroner, and they say this is 100 now. They change the units and they say whatever the money is 100. That's why they all start in 100 here. It doesn't mean that they got the same amount of money in 1984. Not at all. And then what they track is how that grows. Because they say now, let's call it 100, let's see how much bigger it was in 2014. So this looks very promising, and I saw a lot of papers and reports saying this is incredible, we are understanding what fundamental research and the importance because look how much it grows. But when you go and dig a little bit more into the data, and try to see, at this last point here, how much of the gross domestic expenditure on research and development is given to each area, then you realize that fundamental research is just 17%, and 62% of the money is actually going to experimental development. You see here, oh, they probably need the same amount of money as these two. That's completely wrong. 62% goes to improving what we already have. And that's money that gets counted into research and development when you hear your politicians talking about it. So, what's interesting here is that this 17%, you might say, okay, it's 17%, but it's growing, right? Yeah, but a very small number growing 4 times, it's still very small. And you have to see what other things are growing. There's more people that want to do science. There's new areas of fundamental research. Many new areas that just didn't exist in 1984. A lot more universities, a lot more people with higher education that are capable. We are seeing a very positive trend of women that want to start to do fundamental research that we didn't have before. When I was a student, there was no women at all. And now you see, when I'm teaching, it's improving. And women are having role models, and they're getting, that means we have double the amount of brains that want to do fundamental research. But just 17% of that money goes there. All of it goes to, let's come up with a new material to solve the industry problems. All right. So, let's talk about the results. Right? I hope you didn't forget about the questions that we were answering. So, the first question, we were in 1980. So, the finalist for your research grant in this case was a system that scientists will use to send data from their experiments, a car that works on water, and a video telephone. You choose the first one, which of course sounds very boring. That system that scientists did at CERN, they were working in particles and trying to have particle accelerators, and you get a lot of information and you want to share it with all your colleagues all around the world. That was the basis. Not only the basis, it was actually almost everything that was what created the World Wide Web, was the system behind the World Wide Web. And what the World Wide Web is what allows the internet connection, your cables that you have with computers, be able to show you information on websites. And have, you type a website, you go to a website, you go there, all that system is because of the World Wide Web. And the World Wide Web, I hope you agree with me, has completely changed our lives. And has completely changed. It's not only a social innovation in itself, but it has given so many tools to social innovations today. Even if they are, you want to meet all the people that are doing urban farming, how do you do it? You do it through Facebook. you send an email. You go to a website, you read, you get information, you get education everywhere. Anyone can go now and go on a website and learn about quantum mechanics from MIT with videos, lecture notes, anywhere in the world. So you can agree that was a very good set of stuff we got from there. The car that runs on water, well, it did run on water, but it was very dangerous. It didn't really work well, so it led to nothing. And the video telephone by Kyocera, it sort of worked, but it was very expensive. We have to practically change the whole system of how we connect houses together. It didn't really make a lot of sense. But what's interesting is that once we had the World Wide Web, the video telephone was just a little byproduct. We got it for free. Wow, now we can have a video telephone. So we got the video telephone not by thinking about the video telephone. So let's see what you answer, people. This takes a little bit the first time. Yeah, there you go. I might have to go here. Let's see what the screen. There you go. Alright, so this is very nice. I'm really happy to see this. 46.2% answer for the system that scientists will use to send data from their experiments to each other. So you're in the right track. A lot of people wanted a car that ran on water. Yeah, that's also a good bet. However, as we're going to see later, sometimes it's interesting to understand what the possibilities are before we try to solve the problem, because maybe the solution is not thinking about that precise problem. And the video telephone, understandably, of course, you already knew it didn't work out. So, very nice, very nice. So, what have we learned from this? Well, that innovation can come from unexpected places, and that the motivation behind pure understanding can be powerful. How did this group of people come up with the World Wide Web? Well, they were not trying to create the World Wide Web. They wanted to send their data to each other, and their motivation was just understanding how particles work, doing basic research. Also, that solutions don't always come from thinking about the problem. We wanted a video telephone, but we got it, but not by trying to make a video telephone. That's interesting to think about as well. What about the second question? So it's 1940. The first is create a computer. Very important computer because it was the first one that worked with ones and zeros. That was just the best way of doing that. More efficient, easier to build processors, and it's just the way all computers work today. And it actually was the basis to understand how we tell computers to do things. How do we program a computer? What's a programming language? How do you talk to a processor? Basically, how our computers work. So that was very good if you chose that. But the second one, a project dealing with the theory behind the energy of the vacuum state of the universe, that sounds very grandiose, but it helped us understand, for example, something called like the Casimir effect. When you put two metal plates very close to each other, very, very, very close to each other, you see that they have a force, a repelling force that at the beginning they didn't know where it came from. And when you understand the theory behind the energy of the vacuum state of the universe, you see that the vacuum of the universe is not really that quiet. It's bubbling. Because you have a lot of uncertainty, you also have a lot of things that are going on. And that kind of fluctuations from the vacuum create that force that goes between the plates. It's very nice, okay, it's good maybe to read it or see it in a documentary, but actually without understanding that, it would be impossible to miniaturize microchips. Today we're reaching the point that companies like Intel need to do precise calculations about this effect to be able to build the next generation processor. So we need to understand that to miniaturize computers. So this is great because it allows us to understand how to use computers, but this is also great because it allowed us to have what in the 1940s was a super ultra computer that didn't even exist in our pocket. Now we have it in our pocket. And we can connect with everyone, we can do everything we are doing. We can answer questions online in a talk, for example. So let's see what you answer. So 50% of you betted for the applied research. Good bet, because that was also necessary. 18% the vacuum state of the universe, and 31.3% about the leucotomy procedure. Leucotomy is another name for lobotomy. So you gave a lot of money to that. Yeah. So, applied research is very necessary. Don't get my message wrong. I'm not saying that basic research is the panacea, because if you just fund basic research, you're going to sit down and wait for 40 years without something happens. And whatever happens, it's probably going to be in an area that you don't even care about. Applied research is very necessary. But understanding the rules of how nature works is fundamental to open new doors. This interplay that we saw now within the computers, how you understand how to program computers, but also how you can miniaturize them, they play together, and one couldn't be without the other. And improving our understanding can also help us get away from our solutions like lobotomy. Putting research into medicine, into the brain, which has a lot to do with neuroscience, a lot to do with data and tools and technology to be able to measure what's going on in the brain, is what allowed us to understand, okay, you know, cutting somebody's brain off in the frontal lobe doesn't really work that much. Okay. So the last question, 1904, we go far back. First one, you have a group of scientists saying, we want to build an astronomy experiment to test the emission theory, explaining how light travels in space. They did it, and that theory was wrong, and that was it. They would have come out, if you give money to them and say, hey, you know what, that theory was totally wrong. Okay, so what's the right theory? We don't know. We just proved that that one was wrong. The first one, the photoelectric effect, was a way of understanding what happens when light shines into a material. When you have photons, which are this little quanta of light having a little bundle of energy there, heat a material, electricity comes out. But it comes out in a very specific way, and people didn't understand what was going on until they figured it out. And when they figured it out, it allowed us to build solar panels. Without that, without understanding this, no way to do solar panels. Actually, this is the reason why Einstein got his Nobel Prize, not because of relativity, but because of the photoelectric effect. This engine, it was a bit more efficient, extremely difficult to build and extremely difficult to maintain. It would be too expensive, too many pieces. It didn't work. Still used today sometimes in racing, but it's okay. So let's see what you answer. Wow, very, very even here. So most of you, well, actually exactly even here, have 37.5 in both, in the small car company with efficient engines and the scientists trying to understand the details of the theory. Very good. 25% of you went there. So I think this is great, because maybe this small car, this engine was going to be extremely efficient and solve a lot of problems. So it's also valid, it just didn't work out. So revolutionary innovations we've learned, I hope we've learned, can be hiding behind fundamental understanding. Just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, what happens? Being wrong is really important to move forward, because even though you gave money to these people just to prove that a theory was wrong, that's what allowed us to throw it away and move forward and think about the real answer, which was relativity. And result-oriented does not only include positive results. And it's a trend we're seeing in science, a lot of medical sciences now, that people are not even able to publish something if they don't get a positive result, because they don't get money. So why is fundamental research so important? Why is it creating these kind of innovation and new ideas and basically changing our society if the people that are doing it don't care? They are just in their little room doing their science. They don't care about society. Certainly. They don't care. So it's because scientists are motivated by passion. And this is an extremely powerful force. Not only a force that allows you to work a lot, but also a passion that allows you to be curious. A passion that allows you to really go there and see it with those passionate eyes and work on it really hard. Also, academia offers a safe space for boundless exploration. What we've seen, and it's actually something that I talk a lot about, this safe space is shrinking because people are focusing a lot more in applied research and experimental development, so you are starting your research knowing exactly what you want to get out of it. And that's how you get money. You have to promise what you're going to get. So that space is shrinking. There's a smaller and smaller space for people just to think about stuff, dive into the unknown. But so far, academia has offered that safe space. It's basically the only safe space where you can go and just think for the sake of it about stuff. If your motivation is to find what the rules of the game are, you're fueled by curiosity. Curiosity is very natural in humans. Every one of us is curious. And that's when you really are curious about something, you do everything to figure it out. The reward is not to solve society problems, but to know more about what you love. You really want to figure out everything. You don't move forward until you have understood what's going on. And that fact that you are not always trying to speed up getting to the solution, getting to the real work, but you stay there until you have figured it out and you have no pressure to move forward, is extremely powerful because all the things you missed might be hiding there. And abstraction is necessary to think outside of the box. It's fundamental that you're completely decoupled, that there's no pressure to connect with reality and not a lot of interest in what can we do with this. That's a question when I talk about my physics research, people always say, so what's that useful for? And I said, you have 45 minutes. But yeah, that's it. Other way of saying why, quickest way of doing it, if I don't have 45 minutes, is to say nerds. And this is the image we have for a nerd. Because academia has been that place where nerds have been able to be nerds. But, you know, we're seeing more and more nerds in other places. Artists can also be nerds. They also share all this stuff I just talked about, all that passion and curiosity. But also chefs. So they are not trying to build, or they're not trying to cook the food that is going to feed the most people and solve society problems. No, they're trying to make the best burger they can make. Or people that do urban farming, or like some friends I have, that they try to make the most spicy pepper they can. They don't care about society. They're not trying to find more efficient ways of making food for everyone. They're understanding how do they make the most spicy pepper and go and understand all the strands and everything. They're nerds. People that love technology for the sake of technology, not for the sake of how it can help us. People that love VR, people that love computers, technical stuff, and go there and just do it because they love that, not because they think about what are the practical applications. But everywhere you look, there's nerds. So why? Well, high education and automation means people want to focus more on what they love. We're not in a factory 12 hours anymore. At least a lot of us are not. So we get more time to think about what they love. But we need to create spaces for people to do this. Because now you consider somebody lucky if they get a job in what they love. And people have to do what they love in their free time. And some people are brave and just jump off and do what they love just because they want to do what they love. When the chains of production are taken care of, what do you have to do? What's going to happen after jobs are gone? Where are we going to find the motivation? Right now our motivation is to contribute to society, to produce, to make something. You go help make a car, you know you are contributing like that. But where are we going to find the motivation where robots are doing everything? And is it possible to accelerate the time it takes from understanding to innovation? This is the key. Because right now, it takes 30, 40 years before the basic understanding to a practical application. And it actually, in a sense, it is slowing down. Because that path is getting harder and harder. There's more steps. When Newton was thinking about gravity, the practical application was very quick to find out. Where he came up with calculus was very fast. But today, if somebody finds that a certain molecule works in a certain way just because the time that it takes for people to make that into a medicine is quite long. But it's possible. You just need to buy more tickets to the lottery. We need to support it. And how? And I was thinking, okay, I have to give some example. How do you accelerate that? And I thought about a great example, but it's also a very dark example. It's how you accelerate the path between basic understanding and practical application for the wrong reasons. It's the Manhattan Project. For those that don't know, that's the project that built the first atomic bomb. And it was only between 1942 and 1946. 130,000 people at 37 facilities across the USA. 5,000 nuclear scientists assembled at Los Alamos. And not only 5,000 nuclear scientists, it was the best of the best all around the world. People like Fermi, Bethe, Feynman, von Neumann. I could go on. If you haven't heard these names, these are the names. This is the geniuses of that generation. It was mostly applied science, but they brought a lot of fundamental researchers because there are still some basic research questions that needed answering. And they answered them. But not only that, an example, the favorite example of every physicist, Richard Feynman, is the father of the theory, quantum electrodynamics, which is the theory of electrons with light. A theory guy, 100%. He invented Feynman diagrams and contributed a lot to elementary particle physics. So he went there to do calculations relating to criticality and efficiency of the implosion, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But he also became the best safety supervisor when he went in a travel to Oak Ridge, where we're trying to separate the different uranium isotopes, because he went there and they understood, oh, my skills are very useful here, because I actually know you shouldn't put all of this uranium together, and actually water, when you put uranium into water, it more efficiently can go into a chain reaction, and they didn't know that because he was the only guy that knew that. So, not the only guy, one of the few guys that knew that. So he went there and helped and became great. And I love this little thing from his book, one of his books, where he talks about it. So he talks about how he went there and he met all these people that he had only heard about in papers, by reading their papers in physical review. But then when they introduced him to one of them, he was just stands up from a desk covered with blueprints, his sleeves rolled up, and he's cutting out the windows, ordering trucks. In other words, the experimental physicists had nothing to do until their building apparatus were ready. So they assisted in building the buildings, quite a lot. Actually, he says they built the buildings and said, well, they assisted. But you have an experimental physicist that in a situation with that motivation, that in this case, they were afraid that the Germans had it first, but it's a form of passion. That passion allowed them to go there and say, we have to solve this, and we solved it anyway, and I'll use whatever skills I have to solve that. So, how can we do the same, but for the right reasons? How can we accelerate that path, also take all the nerds from all over the place, bring them, let them explore and follow the passion? Well, we need to do a lot. But in short, we need first to find effective ways of transdisciplinary communication. We need to make all these experts that we have today that are in the little bubbles talk to each other efficiently. We need spaces where what is that useful for is not asked at every stage. And this is really, really important, because that's what allows people to find unexpected results. You cannot jump into a project knowing exactly what's going to happen. And you should not try to come up with something to justify. The justification is just, I just want to figure it out. We need to foster and give value to exploration and passion as purpose. And give it value, the same value that we give to somebody making a product, to somebody making something that makes money. Because today, if you want to follow your passion as a purpose, and if you're not a fundamental researcher doing science, you have to do it basically for free, because it's not nice to get paid for doing what you love. That's tough. We need to change that. We need to be ready to connect the results with reality as soon as they appear, but not ask the people that are thinking and exploring to come up with a connection, because that just makes you move forward too fast. That makes you go in the wrong path, because you want to take the shortest path to application, and sometimes that's not the true innovation. So, in an attempt to create a space, a safe space for satisfying all of these things, creating this exploration, and finding, understanding how we do it, because I don't have the answers. These are some ideas. I co-founded, together with Ida, which is an artist, which is sitting there, an organization called Art and Science Initiative. Maria is there helping the board. She's from the social science, art, natural sciences. And what we would try to do after, with a lot of help from people here in Companion, for example, and Network and so on, we try to understand how do we say very quickly what is it that we want to do. And well, Art and Science Initiative is a platform that brings the exploratory nature of both art and science to a new arena, creating knowledge out of passion-driven interdisciplinary collisions and accelerating their implementation to real-world solutions. Okay, but then also a collision comes. Just in the same way that particle accelerators go and destroy things to try to figure out what's going on from the pieces that are left over, we think there's something valuable in letting people collide. People from different areas just talk, and this clash that happens left over a mess. But in that mess, I think there's a lot of valuable pieces to understand where new knowledge is. And then develop, through what we understand through this exploration and collision, we can find people that are passionate about stuff, groups of interdisciplinary people that are passionate about something, and we just let them take projects that are big and small, and products, services, things that we can offer to the people. Just very quickly,
yes.
What we do to channel that effort is we create something that is called narratives, which is they change, but right now we're focusing two of them that are broad areas that let people that feel passionate about stuff get together. The first one is changing what we eat, where we want to take a new look about what are the challenges related to food and how do we change eating practices today. And living loving spaces, which has to do in the light of everything that's going to happen, everything that we're talking about today about the future, how society is going to look in the future, how our houses are going to be or how they should be to meet those challenges accordingly. So if you're interested about and have passion about issues regarding that, I invite you to contact us in our website, join us, read a little bit more about what we're doing and about what we can do for you. And if you are interested about what I do in physics, you can go there too. Thank you.
Wow.